We are going to talk to you today about some books because that was one of the questions that came up when we put out our survey is, tell us something about pronunciation books. So Patrick is going to talk about some surveys and some research that he's done. But I want to make sure you know who our teaching of pronunciation IG coordinators are this year. Besides myself, we have Randy RIghtmire. Hi there, Randy.
Hello, everybody.
And of course, we have Patryk Mrozek. So that's our team for the year. It seems to me that we have a lot of people who are CATESOL members, which is excellent, so that you know that you have a lot of benefits being a member. Some of you are not necessarily from California. Some people from outside of California do join us because we do have such a rich professional development program, and you don't have to travel very far. You can just go to your computer and go ding, and you're in. We are going to have, besides our, we are, TOP is really probably the most active interest group, and we put on our events every month as much as we can. And in addition to that, the CATESOL organization has conferences every year. So we have a spring conference, and then we have our big annual state conference in the fall. So we do have something coming up in April, which we'll talk about a little bit more later on. But just to let you know that if you're not yet a member, consider joining us because you get a lot of benefits from being part of our group. I also wanted to share with you, in case those of you who haven't been to our presentations recently or our most recent conference, you may want to know, well, what are we doing? What have we accomplished? So I'm putting up in the chat a link to a review of the webinars that we did in 2020 and 2021. Wow, that it kind of seems a long time ago, but not that long ago. Certainly during the pandemic, time passes differently. Don't you feel that? That you kind of lose track of, the days of the week and so forth. But in any case, we did have a chance to do some mixing and mingling at our fall conference together. And we also, as I said, we did a survey, so we have an idea of what people are interested in talking about or learning more about or doing some research on. So we're trying to respond to all of those things. Now, we also have a Padlet, which is it shows us a lot of what's going on and what has gone on in terms of events that the Teaching of Pronunciation has held through the years. Now, Teaching of Pronunciation Interest Group started in 2013, so it's not the oldest one and it's not the newest one. We actually have 3 new ones that came up in this past semester. So we've been around for a bit, and if you'd like to know more about the purpose of TOP and meet some of our past coordinators and get access to our professional development webinars, then certainly access it from here. So those of you who are members of Facebook can also join us at the Facebook Top group, which is listed right down here. And we also have the ability to interact with each other on the message board at CATESOL. So those are great places for us to keep in contact with one another. So now I'd like to hand it over to Patryk because he's going to give us an overview of Off the Top Shelf, a review of pronunciation textbooks. Take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Marsha, and thank you. Thanks everyone for attending. We really appreciate that. We appreciate that you've decided to spend this Friday morning for some of you, and Friday is often a day off for us ESL teachers. So we're really happy that you've decided to join us. So let me just go into the presenter view right here. Okay, yes. So like Marsha said just a moment ago, we had a question about pronunciation textbooks in our survey, and also one of our colleagues posted it to the top interest group message board, and we thought that would be a great pretext to take a look at what's out there, what's being used by professionals in the adult education context, in colleges and university programs, and to take a bit of a critical look at some of them, to show what we really love about them, and which textbook could really fit your needs depending on the kind of educational context that you might be teaching in. So I would like today to start by taking a look at some of the more popular and well-established titles used in used in the college and university programs in the United States. And Randy is going to talk to us about the Speechcraft series, which focuses on academic English, for those of you who might be teaching that or interested in a more academic approach. I would like to spend a little bit of time talking about self-study textbooks, because I feel like they're a bit of a controversial topic in the community, because of, they get kind of a bad rep, but there are some pros to using them and to recommending them to students as well. And Marsha is then going to give us an overview on some other resources available to teachers of pronunciation. So here we're talking about the textbooks that teach teachers how to teach, and are a little bit, have been designed with teachers in mind. So let me get right to our first title, which we really love, and I'll be presenting throughout most of this webinar, but we chose these titles and decided which books to focus on together. So I think this is a title that we all felt really strongly about, and I also believe that it really exemplifies what successful modern pronunciation textbooks are like. It exemplifies some of their focus and the type of activities that you might find in a lot of these titles that we'll be discussing today. So the Well Said series, there's two titles. There's the main one. It's in its 4th edition right now, and great improvements have been made to this edition, and that it focuses mostly on intermediate to advanced learners. And then the Well Said intro version of the book has been designed for beginner and low intermediate learners. Each book is $68. If you were to buy it from the publisher, you can get it for cheaper on Amazon, and on there are plenty of used copies available too. And the audio for these books is available online, and it's free. So I think this is a pretty good deal altogether. And I will show you a sample chapter, but in each unit we have distinct segments. So we start with a warm-up. Maybe let me show you what that looks like. So this is actually a sample chapter from the Well Said intro book, and this is available to you online, so you can take a look at this after the webinar too. But in each unit, what we find is a really nice warm-up activity that has the students listening and noticing certain things about sound. So for example, here we have a voicemail message, and the students have to check the word that they hear. This is a warm-up for a lesson about final consonant sounds. So here we have like J and Jake. And then from the warm-up, we go into a segment that I really liked called Notice, which focuses on perception and getting the students to become more familiar with the sounds of English and the rhythm, intonation, suprasegmental patterns as well. As you can see, this is the fourth edition, or actually this is the second edition of the intro book, but both books are very colorful. The design is clean, modern, not too busy, not overwhelming. Which is something we really like about them. And the next segment goes into rules and practice, pretty straightforward and explained pretty straight in a pretty straightforward fashion. And then we have some guided practice with listening and with speaking, and lots of great communication practice, communicative activities. Actually, in a moment, we'll do one of these activities together. I'm hoping that I'll have some volunteers to help me out here. But as you can see, there's both short drills and full-on communicative activities that involve negotiation of meaning. So one student gets to choose a certain contextualized phrase, and then the other students has to react to it by identifying what was being said. So I feel like this book does a really great job of contextualizing instruction and following this type of modern research-based approach to pronunciation teaching, just like I would say most of the books that we'll be looking at today, including Clear Speech and the Focus on Pronunciation series. Now, something I really love about Well Said is that it prioritizes features of pronunciation that are most likely to interfere with intelligibility. So you can definitely see that second language acquisition research has been taken into account in, when it comes to the selection of pronunciation points that are being discussed. And there's a major focus on suprasegmentals here. There's a really wonderful study done in 2014 by Deborah Ricketts that actually analyzed quantitatively some 15 or 16 popular textbooks for pronunciation teaching, and gave us these numbers. So, for example, 60% of the activities in the Well Said intro book are actually communicative. Let's see. Okay, and then a couple of things that we love about this book, and also this type of modern pronunciation training title, is that there's lots and lots of great communicative activities for pairs and groups of students. And in this particular one, we have a section called the pronunciation log, where the students get to listen to themselves, record their speech, and attend to it. So this can be used as homework. This really helps to promote self-correction and self-monitoring of English and English pronunciation. In the fourth edition of Well Said, we also have TOEFL speaking practice activities that really nicely connect the pronunciation points that are being taught to TOEFL speaking activities, and shows students some sample responses marked for pronunciation points. So I think that this is really neat. And what I also, as a non-native English speaker myself, I really appreciated that some recordings in the book featured non-native English accents. So there's a neat shadowing task there where the speaker that the students are supposed to shadow, imitate, and then record themselves actually speaks with a noticeable but clear foreign accent. So I really like that for promoting non-native speaker educators, and also showing the students that there's nothing wrong with having a non-native sounding accent as long as you're easy to understand, comprehend. So I wanted to do an activity from Well Said, and let me share a picture with you. Okay, oh, not this one. One second. Okay, there you go. So here, this is taken from the intermediate to advanced book from Well Said. And here I'm going to need 2 volunteers. So please raise your hand if you'd like to be a volunteer or just say something. Oh, I see Joseph raising their hand. Perfect. And then one more person. Anyone else? And I'm not monitoring the chat. I see that you've been writing things in the chat, but I'm very bad at looking at the chat while I'm... Okay, Seth is going to be my second volunteer. Thank you so much. So for this task, I would like you to use your microphones. And I'm actually going to put a spin on it because I think that this type of task works really well, sort of Jeopardy style. To give you a bit of a background, students here were taught about focus words, so the most stressed or words in a phrase, the words that get the most attention. And what I really liked about the explanation in Well Said is that it talked about this neutral focus word placement, which usually falls on the last content word of a phrase, and then the book discusses using switching focus of word placement for to add another layer of meaning or to express a particular idea. So, for example, here you can see that the phrase "I called my mother" can be pronounced with mother, or the first syllable in mother being the stressed syllable. And that's more of a neutral response to the question, what did you do last night? Oh, I called my mother. But we could also shift the focus word to called to clarify that this in fact happened. So you should call your mother. No, I called my mother, right? I called my mother. What are you talking about? So the way we're going to do this activity, I would like to, it's a little bit different than the instruction here, but I think it works really well as in this sort of Jeopardy style. So I would like Seth to pick one of these phrases, say it out loud with considering the focus word that is underlined and in bold. And then Joseph is going to respond with a question. So, for example, here it's a question, what did you do last night, right? So if Seth says, I called my mother, then I would like Joseph to identify which phrase was being said and respond with what's on the left-hand side, okay? So, Seth, do you want to start?
So it could be anything on the list, or should I just do number 1 and 2?
You could do anything on the list. Yeah, I think we did number 1, so maybe we could start with number 2.
Okay. I just got back from a long vacation.
You need a long vacation.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. So, Joseph here correctly identified back as the focus word and responded with, you need a long vacation. So I wanted to do it this way for the purpose of the meeting. Probably if I was teaching a class, I would start with the regular way and then flip it. Let's do one more, and now maybe you could switch. So Joseph, how about you do number 4 and read one of the responses on the right?
No, I faxed it.
Did you mail that memo?
Very good. Yeah. So the focus here is on the way the memo was shared. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Oh,
I'm
I was
sorry.
gonna say, I love this type of exercise because I think that's stress pattern and context is something students have trouble with. I think it's
Definitely.
valuable.
I found that I wanted to do this activity because I really think it exemplifies the communicative nature of so many of the activities, not just in well said, but also in clear speech and focus and pronunciation. These books have come a long way, and in their latest edition, they're really jam packed with these type of negotiation of meaning exercises. And what I really liked about well said too is that it the explanations are really not just clear, but also everything's really accurate. And I find that in some pronunciation textbooks, some creators of those have referred to sort of outdated knowledge about pronunciation with like long and short vowels and things like that. But I really think that the latest editions of these textbooks, and especially well said, it explains pronunciation the way we really use it without falling back on some outdated concepts. Okay, let's move on from this task. Thank you so much, Seth and Joseph. Thank you for participating. All right, let me move to my slides again. And that's true for the Clear Speech series as well. And here again, we have one book that's more for beginners and another that's better designed for the intermediate level. Overall, I think the activities are slightly lower level in the intermediate one than with Well Said. So that's why I said intermediate and not intermediate to advanced. The book is a little bit cheaper than Well Said, and it includes downloadable audio as well online. And here we have a slightly more straightforward structure. Here's also a sample of the Clear Speech from the Start version of the book. So for beginners and low intermediate learners. So for example, this whole unit is about syllables, and there's a bit of introduction. There's there aren't really specific sections of presentation, noticing, and practice, but things are done a little bit more organically and step by step, with first just introducing that we can have one, two, or three syllables, and here we have a listening discrimination activity. We have another one, and actually, out of all the books that we're looking at, the beginner level book features the greatest number of perception activities out of all the books that have been analyzed, and that's also from the Ricketts study. So here, Clear Speech really believes that we need to get the students to listen and to perceive and be able to discriminate different types of pronunciation before we focus on production. And then, of course, we finish up with some communicative practice too. And again, it's similarly a pair work activity. So one student would say, "We wanted to buy a used car," and the other one will have to recognize whether it was past or present. And then, yeah, and I really like that in this book, the pronunciation points are a little bit more spiraled than in others, which means that they're being reinforced at in different units at different points in time. So we have intonation and suprasegmentals all throughout the book, even when in units where the focus might be more on vowels or consonants. And speaking of consonants, I think that the clear speech treatment, clear speech series does the best job and does a wonderful treatment of consonants with really helpful illustrations. I think when it comes to segmentals, these books really focus on consonants a little bit more than vowels, but do a really wonderful job of presenting and showing students great ways to practice that as well. Okay, I wanted now to move on to a series that I also really love. And like I said, with these books are top notch, and I'm not saying that necessarily some are better than others, but they do slightly differ in their focus. Now with this series, there are actually 3 books. They come for 3 different levels. We've got beginner to and lower intermediate, A1, A2. We've got focus and pronunciation 2, B1 through B2, and then an advanced textbook level 3. Each book, I wasn't able to find them on publishers' websites. But each book is around $45 on Amazon and comes with an MP3 CD right there. Here I'm actually going to use my doc cam because I wanted to show you what one of these books looks like. I really love how straightforward and beautifully designed everything is in this series. I think that the illustrations are really clear. Everything looks really clean and neat and pretty. There's a load of there's loads of illustrations, and they're all done by I think the same graphic designer. So there's lots of clarity and it's just a really great looking series of books. And here, just like with Well Said, we have more of a formal division into presentation, focused practice, and communication practice. And with this series, I'm especially fond of the first book, and that's probably my favorite beginner level textbook for pronunciation classes, because let me go back to my slide. Because what the level 1 does is it not only uses lower level language and the examples and the words that are being practiced, but also in instructions. So instead of linking or liaisons, we have something along the lines of connecting the last sound of a word to the first sound to another word. Everything is explained in a just how a lower level student would be comfortable, and everything is explained with lower level students in mind. And these books are really comprehensive. So they not only focus on those points of pronunciation that most affect intelligibility, but throughout the series, it's over 600 pages total, and in the more advanced in the advanced level, even things that have to do with slang and very informal speech, things like shoulda, woulda, are covered. And then according to Ricketts, actually Focus and Precision 1 had the largest percentage of communicative activities among beginning books. So I think I told you earlier that it was clear speech, and I apologize. So it's actually Focus and Pronunciation 1. And here I would like to do another activity, and here I'm only going to need 1 volunteer, but this is an activity I love from the Focus and Pronunciation 1 textbook. So let me share another picture with you. Mhm. Okay, just to double check, can you see a table that says abilities and skills right here? Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, let me ask for one volunteer right now. Maybe someone who hasn't spoken yet. Sorry, old habits die hard. Kristen?
Yep.
Is that how we spell how I should pronounce your name, Kristen?
Yes, yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Yeah, so in this activity, what I would do is first ask students to fill out this table, this form, this questionnaire for themselves. So for example, I can play guitar, I play the piano, I sing, although not that well. I can't play golf, so I'm gonna put an X here. I can ski actually, but I honestly I can't swim, which is it's really strange because I lived in Los Angeles for so long, and I'm okay at cooking. I can drive, and let's say that I speak Polish, my first language. So I'm gonna put Polish here. So this is what the students would do on their own. And then I would ask them to interview their partner. And I would ask to make it a little bit more guided at first. I would ask the students to only respond with I can or I can't. No, please don't use yes or no. Because here we're focusing on getting the students to, you know, in case of can, to pronounce it with a schwa in the middle and stress the next word. You know, I can play, and in case of can't, to pronounce the vowel fully and stress can't a little bit, like I can't play golf or I can't golf, right? So, Kristen, let me ask you a couple of questions, if you don't mind. And please only respond with I can or I can't,
Okay.
plus whatever I ask here. So, Kristen, can you play the guitar?
I can't play the guitar.
All right, so I think this is a no. Am I right?
That's right.
Okay, good. Yeah. And then, you know, there's negotiation of meaning, of course. But let me ask Kristen. Kristen, can you drive?
I can drive.
I can drive. I think it's a yes, right?
Mhm. That's right.
Because the vowel was shorter, drive was given a little bit more stress.
Mhm.
Let me ask you, Kristen, can you speak? What languages can you speak?
I can speak Japanese.
Oh, wow. Awesome. So I would say speaks. I definitely heard you stress speak and the vowel in can being shorter. I'm going to write down Japanese. Now, can you speak Polish, though?
I can't speak Polish.
No, you can't speak Polish. All right.
I wish I could.
Yeah, I wish I could speak Japanese. So thank you so much. That's basically the activity. Thanks so much, Kristen, for volunteering. There's actually a follow-up here, but I'm going to have to clear my annotations because unfortunately they don't move with the picture. But the follow-up in this textbook is that you can use, the students can use the information from the chart to write 2 sentences about their partner and then read them out loud. So now I could say, oh, I talked to Kristen and Kristen can drive, but she can't play the guitar. And Kristen can speak Japanese, but she can't speak Polish, right? And then the instructor could at this point give some corrective feedback. And yeah, I think this is a really neat activity for teaching that particular pronunciation point of can and can't, but focus on pronunciation. All 3 books have lots and lots of great communicative activities like that. Okay, let me now finish up with the community college / university level books. Another one that is commonly used and is a great book is Targeting Pronunciation by Sue Miller. And this one, I would say, skews slightly higher level than the other ones. I would say upper intermediate to advanced. Although if you adjust the activities, then lower intermediate would work too. It's $70 from publisher, and audio CDs are sold separately. I wasn't able to find audio recordings online. The focus is on suprasegmentals. I really love their treatment of intonation. And again, lots of communicative activities, fun role plays, lots of pair group activities. I found that the hints and instructions for independent practice were useful too. And I feel like this book could be used a little bit more with students who don't necessarily have a teacher as a self-study text. Now, unfortunately, the latest edition of this book is the second edition, and it doesn't look nearly as modern as the other books. As you can see, there's a lot of content here, and the content is great, but it's still black and white, and could be slightly overwhelming to students and teachers with just the amount of stuff there is here. So this is a book that I draw from mostly for activities with pretty advanced students. And Randy, I think you've had some experience with targeting pronunciation. Is that right?
Yeah, right, Patryk. You know, I agree with you. I really love the way that it treats intonation. And one of the pages from this book that I still use to this day, even though I don't use the whole book anymore, I love this page near the end where an entire conversation takes place using intonation, or where one partner is only using intonation. So if, you know, for example, somebody says, well, have you seen my cat? And the response is, hmm? Or, yeah, maybe I should keep my cat indoors. And the response is, hmm. And so the uses of intonation to kind of refer to different emotions or different interactive values is really interesting and something that I haven't found in any other book.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and someone I just scrolled through the chat said that they love this book, and you know, I also think that all the ones that we've been talking about here, you know, are really wonderful, and I'm really looking forward to hopefully getting my hands on a new edition of Targeting Pronunciation if it comes out. It's because I think that just with a bit of an update, it could be even better. And going back to you, Randy, actually, I think you wanted to ask a question and maybe talk about this other series of textbooks.
Well, sure. And maybe, Patryk, you can help me by telling me what people respond in the chat, since I'm not monitoring the chat right now.
Oh,
but
sure.
My question is, do you teach graduate students? Do you teach international TAs? And maybe I should broaden my question here, because this series of books is also directed towards any advanced academic learners, you know, such as upper division undergraduates, and also professionals who are not in academics. But what I should say is the series comes with a textbook that you see in the middle of these three images here, and two optional workbooks on the left and the right. And if you're working, for example, Amber, I heard you say that you're working with professionals who are not in an academic setting, and they could benefit from the main book, which really doesn't focus only on academic discourse, but it introduces contexts where two colleagues are speaking in an office, for example, or a supervisor and an employee in kind of a professional setting. I would say if you wanted to use this with advanced graduate students or advanced undergraduate students, you might also use the workbook for academic discourse. If you're working with international TAs, as I do at UC Santa Barbara, you might also want to add the workbook for international TA discourse. But even with those populations, just the textbook by itself is a great standalone book. And what I love about this is there's no focus on segmentals. It's all on rhythm and intonation. The chapters are divided up into word stress, and there are many, many chapters on word stress. This is something that Wayne Dickerson devoted a lot of his career to. And so there were just lists and lists of hundreds and hundreds of words grouped into sorted into groups according to the pattern. So as you guys probably know, the long suffixed words in English are very often have a predictable stress pattern according to the suffix. If we add ology to the end of a word, you know that all is always going to be the stressed syllable in biology, physiology, entomology, whatever the ology happens to be. Similarly, the IC words or ICS words, they will always be stressed in the syllable right before the suffix, whether it's economics or linguistics or mathematics. So the words are grouped in that way when it comes to word stress. And then the intonation development in this series is also really, really strong. All of the practice exercises for students start in a context, and the context is described a little bit at the beginning of the practice. And then there's a dialogue between two or more people. And long and short dialogues are really the strong point of this series, I'd say. So that's all I want to say about this. I don't think there are very many of us here at this meeting who are teaching students at this level. So I'll pass the baton to, I think it's Marsha who's going to talk next.
Thank you so much, Randy. Before Marsha talks about resources for teachers of pronunciation, there's actually one last thing I wanted to mention, unless I don't have time to do that. Marsha, what do you think? Okay, very quickly. So I wanted to talk about self-study books too, a little bit. And by self-study, I mean these books that are widely available. Usually they have the word accent in their name and a big American flag. So for instance, we have the American Accent Training by Ann Cook, Mastering the English Accent by Lisa Moyson, and Perfecting English Pronunciation by Susan Cameron. And I think that with some teachers, these books have gotten a bad rep because at least the cover image and the title focuses on accent as opposed to pronunciation, which is likely for marketing reasons, and it doesn't really change the type of activities and the type of content that's in those books, which definitely prioritizes intelligibility and comprehensibility. Because these books have been created for individual use, there's limited number of communicative activities, or some of those books downright have no communicative activities, and their methodology may not be informed by current SLA research. I'm not talking about those three, but some other study books, self-study books, have been created by actors, and they're not necessarily informed by this type of research that we're used to. But I have a soft spot in my heart for these books. The way my ability to speak with clearly in English, I would attribute to the American Accent Training by Ann Cook. That was all I used before I started teaching, or before I did grad school. And I wanted to point to some benefits of using these books as secondary texts. I think that because they're designed for students with no background knowledge about pronunciation, even beginner teachers can benefit from looking at them because everything's explained very clearly. The explanations are long, and perfecting your English pronunciation with Susan Cameron, for example, it actually includes in the previous edition it was a DVD. Now I think it's all online, but there's videos with explanations that beginning pronunciation teachers can use if they don't feel 100% comfortable, with their knowledge of pronunciation points yet. These books are really cheap and widely available. Mastering the American Accent, which is probably my favorite one of the three, is $14.99 with downloadable audio. They include hours of sentences and long paragraphs to imitate. And I would say that drills are certainly out of vogue right now when it comes to teaching pronunciation. And of course, research shows that communicative activities are necessary and they really contribute to pronunciation, attainment. And I'm not saying that we should go back to drills exclusively, but I think that depending on the type of teachers that you have, students that you have, and their goals, having content that students can imitate and drill as homework is really useful too. The Perfecting English Pronunciation, similarly to the Speechcraft books, it actually has long lists of hundreds of words with a particular pronunciation feature. It has really nice long contextualized sentences for practicing everything the book strives to teach. So in terms of just the amount of content that a pronunciation teacher could use for their drills and could ask students to shadow, for example, or imitate as homework, all of these books are a wonderful resource. And my final point here, it's actually something I forgot to put on the slide, but these books usually include L1 specific guides for instructors. So similarly to that book that Paula, I think, mentioned, which is a fantastic resource. It's called Learner English. These books all have at the end of these books, you'll find guides for what the typical mistakes could be, or the typical problem areas could be for students depending on their L1. So these books tend to talk a lot about transfer and pronunciation points that you might want to address with a particular group of students. Again, this makes them a really wonderful resource for teachers who maybe haven't gone through their master's in ESOL yet, and could use a bit of training on methodology and just the sound system of English, or what's really happening in your mouth. So yeah, just wanted to say that there are some pros to taking a look at these books that are widely available. Like I said, Mastering the American Accent, you can get at the Barnes and Noble for $14.99, but they do offer some really great things. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And I think I'm going to pass the baton now to Marsha, who's going to tell us more about.
Yeah, well, that's great. Thank you so much, Patrick. You've done a great job of talking about the different kinds of books that are used in classrooms and that are available to teachers who are doing classes. And Randy, you talked about the ones for more advanced learners, because we do have some people here like Seth, university, and we're working with students who are at higher proficiency levels. And now I'm retired from Mission College, so I'm not in the classroom with beginning and intermediate students. My private practice is typically with students who are probably have far more degrees than I have and in their particular fields, and they want to become more proficient at English with all the wild things that they have learned in probably a multitude of languages. So it's important for us to have a lot of different options, not only for a classroom, but the self-study books that you talked about. If you are a self-starter and very highly motivated learner, there are a lot of things that you can get from looking at a list and knowing what you're going to look for. So thanks a lot for telling us those things. I wanted to let everybody know that we do have, if you don't mind, could I go ahead and do share screen?
Oh, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So what I wanted to mention is, okay, we do have, let's see, what do we have here? Let's see, okay, so one of the things I did want to say is that, let's see, what am I sharing? Let's see, I'm sharing. Tell me what's showing up on my screen here. I'm kind of multitasking here. Is anything showing at all?
Not yet. You're not
okay, not
showing
yet.
right now.
All right, so let me go ahead and click this button here. And I wanted to go to our CATESOL home site because I want you to know that we do have resources available to you as members and even non-members, because we have our CATESOL journal. So CATESOL journal is an open source. It's available to you whether you're a member or a guest. And one of the issues that we did not too long ago was a special issue on pronunciation. And this is volume number 30, volume 30, number 1. It's got an imprint of 2018. So this is a special interest or a special issue on pronunciation that was edited for us by our own Donna Brinton here at CATESOL, as well as our guest editors, John M. Levis and Anna Wu. And so this might have some articles in it that could inform you as a teacher of pronunciation or as a teacher of any oral skills that have to do with speaking and pronouncing. So that's going to be available to you. All you have to do is come to the homepage, and under communication, you can go to the journal in that way. All right, now, what else? Okay, so other resources that I think are great to have on your shelf. Some of these I have on my shelf and I refer to them. The Teaching of Pronunciation book by Marianne Sells-Murcia, Donna Brinton, Janet Goodwin, and the latest edition by includes Barry Griner. So I believe I don't have the latest edition. I have one of the earlier editions, but the latest edition is available. And it's a wonderful resource because it's got all of the things you need to know as a teacher of pronunciation. What is pronunciation? How is it involved? What are some things you can do at beginning, intermediate, and advanced levels? And so it goes into the research of it and pedagogical implications and also practice. So that's a great one. Another 3 that are available from TESOL Publications. This one is called Beyond Repeat After Me, which is by our own Marla Yoshida, who has been part of TOP. She was a co-coordinator with me a couple of years ago. So this one is another book that you might be interested in taking a look at, because that a lot of the books, the earlier books were very much repeat. And then of course this one, what it does, it includes a lot of activities and thought processes about how to activate different parts of sociolinguistics and pragmatics with learners. New ways in teaching speaking and new ways in teaching connected speech. These are like recipe books. So these kinds of books, these are edited volumes. And then professionals like me have put in different articles about different kinds of pronunciation activities that you might find useful if you're looking for activities. So it'll tell you, it's kind of, as I said, it's kind of like a recipe book. It'll tell you what level it's good for. It'll tell you what the aim of a particular activity is. It'll tell you like how much class time you should prepare. If there's preparation, what you need to do for it. Then it gives you, what are the procedures for delivering the activity. And if there are any caveats, then those are added as well. So these two volumes are also, like this one, available from CATESOL. Another favorite is this Pronunciation Myths book, which is by Linda Grant. Of course, we see how much we like Linda Grant's work. And so she edited this volume. And in this volume, written by many professionals in the field of teaching pronunciation, have talked about myths that people may have, and then they go about dismissing them. For example, myth number one is, once you've been speaking a second language for years, it's too late to change your pronunciation. Whoa. So Tracy During and Murray Monroe talk about their research that dismisses this myth. Pronunciation instruction is not appropriate for beginning level learners, which is bunk. So this is something that Beth Zielinski and Linda Yates from, let's see, are they from Down Under, either Australia or New Zealand? Ooh, they debunk this one. Another one is called Pronunciation Teaching has to establish in the minds of language learners a set of distinct consonant and vowel sounds. All right, so this one, John Fields debunks that one. Intonation is hard to teach. Judy Gilbert, one of our early members of CATESOL pronunciation and the author of Clear Speech, debunks this one about intonation being hard. Students would make better progress in pronunciation if they just practiced more. That's Linda Grant's myth to debunk. Accent reduction and pronunciation instruction are the same thing. Ron Thompson says, not so. Teacher training programs provide adequate preparation in how to teach pronunciation. John Murphy has done a lot of research on what schools that teach MA TESOL students do and don't do to prepare teachers of pronunciation, which is why being part of Topic is so important, because we continually do professional development, whether or not your master's program included stuff like that. Now, a recent publication by John M. Levis, who is huge in pronunciation in terms of writing a journal, and he came to speak for us, and he does a lot of work in this with his graduate students, is intelligibility, oral communication, and the teaching of pronunciation. So again, focusing on why we teach pronunciation. We teach it so that we can help other users become more intelligible, not so that they can speak just like me, but so they can be intelligible to each other. If you're interested in assessment, how do we assess? This is really a very difficult subject, is how do we assess somebody's pronunciation, whether it's acceptable or not, whether it's intelligible or not. So here's a volume that I believe, is it a TESOL volume? I can't remember. No, it's Second Language Acquisition. So this is a little bit more academic, and it talks about different ways that you can do assessment of pronunciation. And there are sociolinguistic concerns, there are psycholinguistic, speech sciences. So these are, that's what this volume will help you with. Discourse intonation. Now, this is a new publication. It's by Lucy Pickering, who's done a lot of research on the intonation and understanding it, as well as teaching it, especially in terms of discourse, that is, while we are talking with each other. So this is a good volume. If you're looking for some sorts of lighthearted and easy to work with tips, then Mark Hancock's 50 Tips for Teaching Pronunciation may be something you'd like to have on your shelf too. And then you can open it and take a look and see what tips might work with students that you are you're working at. So I'm sure all of us, we don't all teach at the same level. And it's possible that some of us teach at different levels, right? I already heard that today. You know, some of you are teaching this level class and that level class. And some semesters you may teach this level, and some semesters you may teach that level. So we have to have our bag of tricks has to be pretty big. And so these are some of the resources that I think you might want to include. But I'm very open to listening to other ideas that you all have. For both books that you like to use with students and books that you like as teacher resources. So feel free to open your mics and or tap in the chat, whichever you prefer. But, you know, it's a good time to open your mics and we can listen to you because we'd love to hear your pronunciation.
Okay, no, I'm not gonna speak.
Go ahead, please speak
No,
up. We'd
no,
love to
no.
hear your
No,
voice.
it was just a joke. Actually, I don't teach pronunciation. I've never taught it. But I do once in a while when my textbook suggests, you know, teaching a feature. I do my best to teach it. I rely on a copy of Clear Speech that I have, an old copy. I use it. I like it. I'm gonna see if I can get some of the books that Patryk suggested at the beginning of the presentation. Concerning your question, I sometimes use the YouTube channel Rachel's English. I believe that's the name. Some of the videos are way too long, but I kind of watch them myself, you know, just to understand the pronunciation feature, and then I try to explain it to my students. I don't necessarily have the students watch the video because they're just too long, but I watch them myself and try to get an idea what she's trying to say. But I'm gonna definitely get a copy of some of the books that Patryk suggested.
Yeah, we'll be sending out the link to this after the show. So somebody asked that question. Yeah, we'll be happy to share this and then
thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
you're
Vanessa.
welcome. Yeah, thank you for your input. Anybody else want to add something about what you use or that you would recommend?
That's Paula. Sorry. Hi.
Hey, Paula.
Following up on Hancock's the tips book. I haven't actually seen that one, but I love. Well, his pronunciation games is like, you know, classic. I've used that at all levels of teaching. But the new series, the Prawn Pack, that he came out with, the 4 books.
Oh yeah, I've heard about it. I've read about it, but I haven't seen it.
Oh, I highly recommend the Prawn Pack series. It's by Hancock, and they're just really grab and go worksheets on a different, like, you know, one is I can't remember the different 4 divisions of how he divides them, but you know, there's rhythm work, there's stress, intonation, there's just there's phonetics or the individual phonemes. The Prawn Pack series by Hancock, which is the newest of his stuff, I highly recommend it. It's great.
Marsha, do you want to show it?
Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead and show that.
Just Google prawn. Sorry,
Just really in Google.
Google Prawn Pack Hancock. I used it like in 2019 at my last class at UC Berkeley, where I was teaching pronunciation, the summer English language studies or session, and yeah, I just
oops, I just press the bottom. Okay, here it is. Yep, you can see it right there. Lots
So
and
one
lots
is
of work.
puzzles, workouts, pair work, and poems. Yeah. So it's a much more amplified version of his first pronunciation games book that was like
Yeah.
ages ago.
Mhm.
And they're all downloadable. Like you can get a PDF. Everything's online as well. The PDFs and the listenings or the audio. So whether you have the physical book, like you can also buy it and get access to it online.
How cool. Nice. Very nice. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no worries.
Others? Anybody else want to share anything else? Don't be shy.
I just want to share a YouTube channel that I've been using as well, which is the Accents Way English with Hadar. And I also use your videos, Marsha, sometimes with my students. I try to find your YouTube videos.
Oh, my YouTube videos. Okay. Well, I just got a message from YouTube that I hit 10,000 members, which is probably not very many compared to famous athletes, but not too bad. And so actually, the book that I'm most familiar with is Phrase by Phrase, which is my own book, but it's not new. And but it is still beloved by some schools where they use it a lot, and where they can get the book and download all the audio and videos that they need to practice with. And it works from I feel that pronunciation is very holistic and needs to incorporate a lot of listening and pronunciation. So as some of the other textbooks that we have looked at, and actually that I have used or I have piloted, they do have a lot of listening to it. There's always a listening component that starts everything, and there's broad listening, and then there's narrow listening. And broad listening for content and ideas and feelings, and then going down to listening for sounds and sound patterns. And then this hourglass thing goes back into working on sounds and sound patterns and bringing it out into sentences, phrase by phrase, and to bring it back into a whole contextualized piece. So every lesson starts out with some sort of a story, or maybe a dialogue that people will listen to for its content, and then also for content in terms of phonemes or intonation and stress patterns that they should listen for, and then try to build into their own speech by the very end of the program. So I want to thank Patryk especially for talking so much about our lesson books, the books that we use in our classrooms. And I also want to invite you to things that are coming up that we're having next month. So at this time next month, that will be March 18th, we're going to have a Q&A roundtable, which I think Randy's going to say something a little bit more about. And in April, instead of having just a simple professional development webinar like we're doing now, we're going to have our invited guests, Dr. Jen Foote from the University of Alberta and Dr. Ron Thompson from Brock University. Both of these are Canadians, and they don't have to fly over. They're going to be coming here virtually during our program, which we call our spring conference. So CATESOL is having a spring conference, and it'll be on 2 weekends. So I want you guys to mark these dates down, 23rd and the 30th, which are both Saturdays. We're going to have our spring conference, all virtual, all right? And in the fall, we're going to have our face-to-face conference in Pasadena. That's September 29th through the 2nd of October. So these are the next 2 that are coming up. And perhaps, Randy, you want to say a little bit more about...
Before Randy goes on, Marsha, just one quick word about something I just put that in the chat too. But
okay,
we now have a newsletter
yes,
that you can sign up for, even if you're not a CATESOL member. So if you prefer to get our updates directly to your email, I posted a link to a Google form. You can tell us what kind of updates you'd like to receive and how many updates. We promise we won't send you more than like 3 or 4 things a month. So we're not going to spam you, but I think it's a nice way to connect if you're not a member, or if you're not signed up if you're not a member of our message board too, because that's where the updates usually go through.
Okay. All right. That's great. Okay. So everybody got that in the chat, right? So go ahead and click on that one, and then you'll add your name to hear about the events that we're going to be putting on. Sounds good. Great. Thank you very much, Patryk, for putting that together. That's a great idea. Shall we have Randy say some more about this one?
First, I just wanted to see if Paula had her hand raised. Paula, did you have a question or a comment? Nope. Okay, maybe not.
And the question about, is that April 23rd and 30th from Seth? Yes. So that's
Yeah,
right.
figured it out.
Our spring, our CATESOL spring is going to be those 2 dates.
I think very quickly, I think one of the challenges we face is the fact that students don't receive pronunciation instruction at an early stage. I know and this could apply to any of our webinars, but I know, like, when I was studying Spanish and French, pronunciation was one of the first things that we were taught. And I mean, it doesn't mean that we kind of understood everything. But I'm just kind of astounded, even now, when I encounter people who've been studying a language for 10 years or more and have never had any pronunciation instruction. And I think that, that's the challenge. I mean, there's no immediate answer to that, but it's just something to consider.
Yeah, well, the research that John Murphy did on pronunciation instruction, at least English pronunciation instruction around North America, there were a lot of different reasons. And one of them was that the professors weren't taught to do that. So they didn't feel like they knew how to teach somebody else to do that. And so the feeling of, I guess, a lack of competence in doing it was one of the things. And then there are the non-native speakers who don't have the confidence that their pronunciation is strong enough or standard enough or intelligible enough to be the expert on this. There's also the problem of administrators looking down on people who don't speak American the way they speak American, and not allowing non-native speakers the fact that, having come through the learning of English, they really understand a lot about English pronunciation, and they should therefore use that information to teach. So there are a lot of factors, I guess, that have influenced the lack of teaching and learning pronunciation at all levels.
Can I
But
just say
we're
one?
trying to change that.
Yeah, one quick thing. I've taught abroad since 2007 outside of the US, lots of different language schools. I've only ever saw one school that had a full-time pronunciation course, a private language school, and they had developed themselves. It was in Sydney, Australia. And other schools had like a pronunciation elective, so to speak, an hour maybe. But this school taught a 10-week course, 2 5-week blocks, 20 hours a week, full-time pronunciation course. And I was lucky enough as a casual to get trained on that course and teach it. But in all the countries I've been in and all the schools I've worked in, it's the only one I've ever seen. And funny enough that it was in Australia, they still taught pronunciation in an American accent, because they said the American accent was the megaphone of English accents.
Yeah.
So it was fascinating to watch my Australian colleagues switch into American accent when they did the choral repetition or whatever. I couldn't have done that for Australian English ever. So one school.
Yeah, well, that's pretty fascinating. And now you're in Spain, right?
Yeah. I left California in 2007, went to Sydney, Australia, and now I'm in Spain. And hope to come back to California this summer, but COVID.
Yeah, COVID.
But it's been great. Thank you guys so much for sharing. Those three I've used well said and pronunciation, the two of the books. But I just one quick question. I was going to put it in the chat. But has anybody used that's still here? Has anybody used what's it called? I've got these 3 books here with me. They've traveled around the world with me. Pronouncing American English by who is it? Orion? No, Orion?
Yes, Orion. I do recall that being used, and somehow I didn't like it, but I can't remember much about it.
No,
I remember it
haven't
was
used
not a
for-
choice
I
of
just have
mine.
Yeah, I have a copy, like a sample copy. I might have pulled 1 or 2 things from it, but I haven't used it. I was just curious if anyone else had.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Anybody else use it? Oh, Sharon didn't like it either. I can't remember what we didn't like about it, but I remember looking at it and not liking it.
Yeah, fair enough. Me too.
Maybe it was, the thing is, every book has some good things and bad things, or maybe every book has some good things in it, not necessarily bad things, but everything has, and maybe there's not enough of the thing that you're looking for. I mean, I find it fascinating, Patryk, when you mentioned that there's somebody who did the research on how many listening activities or what percentage of it, or how many, communicative activities and that sort of. So that's cool. And I think it would be great if you could put the study in our slide later on, and which we will then send out. I mean, because we can embellish these slides before we send them out to you. I will definitely send them out to you.
Sure. So it's there as a reference right now.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, that's cool.
It's an unpublished master's thesis, so I can actually just put a link to it in the chat right now.
Okay, somebody at
That's
University of
widely
Alberta.
available. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Under, I think
Yes, I got it. Got it.
Yeah.
So 16 English as second language pronunciation books were examined. Okay. But not
looks
the
like
CDs.
Tracy Derwing was the advisor in that thesis.
Oh, okay. Well, that sounds interesting. Anything Tracy does. Okay. But one thing I noted, it said, but none of the CDs. So the audio CDs were excluded from the research. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm really into listening and what pronunciation is. As somebody who's published a book with not only from my own company, little company, teeny weeny company, Sunburst Media, but also with some of the bigger companies. Whenever I did a book and it had audio, I was not only really working on the text, but also on the audio. And I sent back audio several times, and I said, no, the intonation has to be this way. No, the stress has to be this way. No, the linking has to be like so. Because I thought that was really key, because the students, like how many of them are going to be learning a lot from the printed word? And how many are they going to be listening to it and going, oh, so this is what the word sounds like. So that's why I was really keen on making sure the audio came out with the features that I wanted it to. So I don't know about you, but sometimes I work with a publisher's book, right? And then the audio accompanies it. And most of the time it's great. But sometimes the audio, there's something wrong with it, especially in terms of what intonation pattern or the stress, like you're thinking that this word should be stressed in that word, in that interaction. And this discourse intonation needs to be like this instead of like that. So I don't know. I would listen to the audios, but I'm sure for her just doing a master's program, she couldn't do all of it. So she just read through the books and not listen to the audio. But I just wanted to say that piece about how audio is really a huge part of a pronunciation book. Okay, well, thanks very much. I love that all you guys came here and you contributed and you raised your hand to do your activities with Patryk. And I guess it's about time for us to say adios, adieu. See you next month.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Have
you
a wonderful
all for
weekend.
coming. We'll be ending the recording.